let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. Come on. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me again on my podcast. This is the TNOSS Podcast, bringing you sports, high school, college, and the professional sports world. Got lots of stuff coming up on today. We are talking high school football, the last and final week of the regular season in high school football before the FHSAA 2012 football playoffs begin next week. And we also have Austin Beard joining me today for college football, and Kim Kaminiski is joining me as well, talking about some of what are the athletes doing off the field or off the court and what they're doing outside of the professional sports world. So a packed show. I'm also going to be giving you fantasy tips and advice for your Week 10 teams. Got some great stuff for you here today as well when that comes up. I got your who you should sit this week, who you should start, and who are some sleepers that you could possibly need coming into this week. Some late possible moves or possible trades I could suggest to you to try and get your team into that playoff hunt and maybe even push you in towards that championship run. So first we're going to start off with the last week of high school football. Around the Space Coast, up first, 7 p.m. tonight, Jupiter Christian at Holy Trinity. Holy Trinity's season will end tonight. They will not be going to the playoffs after losing a nail-biting game last week to MCC. Their rival MCC scored a late touchdown on the finals, and with that, they took, instead of kicking for the extra point to tie the game, they went for two, converted, and that sealed the game with only about 3 seconds left for Holy Trinity to try and do something crazy on a kick return. They weren't able to. Another one, Ocala Christian at Merritt Island Christian. Merritt Island Christian would like to come out of this season with a win, with a winning season. They're 4-4 right now. Ocala Christian is 3-5. That game is at 7 p.m. So it should be very interesting. The Cougars are at home tonight, so it'll be their senior night. Merritt Island Christian, like I said, would like to end this season with a 5-4 record, getting that W tonight. Another game. This game, the Friday night locker room. Myself, Steve Wilson, and Norval Susong will be at the Barbecue Bowl. Rockledge at Cocoa, 7-2 teams meeting up. This is an annual rivalry game. I should mention that this week in the Space Coast is a big rivalry week. So like I said, a lot of good games on tonight. But Rockledge at Cocoa, the annual Barbecue Bowl. This game is probably going to be as competitive as it has been in recent years. The last victory for Rockledge was back in 2005 when they won 22-12. And the last team to beat Cocoa was back in 2008 where they lost to Merritt Island 15-14. Cocoa has won 21 games in a row against Brevard County teams. So like I said, it'll be very interesting to see tonight's game. I will be at that game. It'll be a very fun and exciting game. Terrian Folson, Antoine Lee, Lorenzo Pratt, probably the most exciting three-headed monster rushing attack in the county right now. Leroy Berry, Josh Gaines, and a lot of other players doing some great things at the running back position this season. But the things that those three are able to do for that Cocoa team is really going to take them to big places and hopefully to a state title. Up next, we have the Beach Bowl between Cocoa Beach and Satellite. Cocoa Beach's season will end tonight unless they go play for a bowl game. Cocoa Beach lost big last week to Orlando Jones, 53-23. Cocoa Beach has had a great season. Unfortunately, 2 losses were to their 2 district opponents, and you can't really lose those games and try and make the playoffs. So I think a team that really could have done some things in the playoffs this season won't be able to make it, but they had a great season nonetheless, one of the best seasons Cocoa Beach has had. And Satellite is 3-6, a team you can't sleep on. They got a great defense. I like where in the direction that they're going. A lot of good players. The linebacker Gable leads the county in tackles with about 136 so far. So Satellite's defense is no slouch. They're going to give Cocoa Beach and quarterback David Descent a lot of fits tonight, I'm sure. Bayside and Apopka. Bayside season will also end tonight as they are not moving on to the playoffs. Bayside is 4-5. They'd like to even that up tonight, and they would like to get to 5-5, make the season 500. They faced a lot of tough opponents this season. They really did play a tough schedule. Unfortunately, they lost big to Palm Bay, which really sealed their sealed their fate in terms of playoff hopes. But Bayside really has has had a great team this season. They just ran into a lot of opponents that were just a lot better than they were in terms of just they had a lot better players, and their coach really set up their schedule to just play these tough opponents. And Popka's another team that's going to be really tough for Bayside. Popka is one of the best in Class 8A. They've won 6 in a row, scoring no fewer than 46 points. Bayside's got a tough test. Their defense has a really big test tonight, so I'm really interested to see what they do tonight. And like I said, I'll have all the high school updates and all the scores for you as we broadcast the Cocoa Rockledge game. Florida Air and Christchurch teams, they'll be playing in Jacksonville tonight at 7:30. The Falcons will be trying. They've lost 3 in a row. They will be trying to get back to 500. Florida Air had another good season, just some problems just late in the year, unfortunately. You just can't control some things, and with injuries, that happens. So Florida Air will not be making the playoffs themselves. Melbourne at Merritt Island. This isn't a traditional rivalry, but this is a battle between two historic high school teams in the county. Melbourne High School won the first state championship for Brevard County in 1966, and Merritt Island won in 1972, and also a few years later as well. So Melbourne and Merritt Island, a battle of storied high schools in Brevard County. Should be a great matchup. This game always provides great defense and always exciting play. Last year, Merritt Island stopped Melbourne on a 4th and goal in overtime. So I would expect nothing less of an exciting game tonight between Melbourne and Merritt Island. Heritage at MCC, 2 teams that are going to the playoffs. MCC will be on the road next week, as well as the Heritage Panthers in the first round of the playoffs. But MCC's got a great passing attack, and Heritage has got a great rushing attack. So it'll be interesting to see which offense can get on top of the opponent's defense. And then tonight, Vieira at Titusville. These 2 teams just trying to get out a victory and end the season on a positive note. Vieira is 1-8. They had a shot to go to the playoffs last week. They lost to Port St. Lucie in the 3-team playoff that occurred on Monday night. Titusville, 3-6. They got a new coach this season. I think they're heading in the right direction. So I look for some big things from Titusville tonight against Vieira as a team that Vieira is just going to have to do a lot of work in the offseason. So that is high school football around the county. Like I said, the last week of the regular season around the Space Coast. Very exciting stuff. If you guys can, you can listen on 89.3 in Northern Brevard or 90.3 in Southern Brevard for the Cocoa Rockledge game. And you can also tune in to AM 1300 for the Melbourne Merritt Island game. So we're going to move our attention from high school football to college football. First, we're going to hit the Division III level, my alma mater, Wisconsin Lutheran College. They're getting ready to take on their rivals, the Concordia Wisconsin Falcons. This is the battle for the Luther Cup. WLC has won it the previous 2 times so far. They've evened the series in the Luther Cup to 2-2. So it'll be interesting tonight, or interesting tomorrow, if WLC can continue its winning ways. Concordia, Wisconsin, and WLC favoring a big heated matchup. And like I said, that game is always exciting. That game is always a big rivalry between the 2 teams. I can tell you, as being a part of it, WLC doesn't like them, and they don't like us. So like I said, it'd be a very cool and interesting game tomorrow. I wish the seniors luck tomorrow and health to stay healthy. I know they got banged up a little bit last week on their senior day, but I hope they finish the season strong. Maybe they can get themselves in for an at-large bid in the playoffs. They've played really well. That defense has been in the top ranked for a while. WLC is even garnishing top 25 votes in Division III. So I think WLC could have a shot. I wish those boys the best of luck today. Continue with winning ways, and maybe you guys can definitely get in with a decisive victory over your rivals tomorrow and get an at-large playoff berth. I wish you guys the best of luck and get that Luther Cup and let it stay in Milwaukee. So let's move forward to Division I college athletics. Austin Beard's going to be joining me. Austin, how's your day going so far, buddy?
Pretty good. I have a game tonight of my own, and I just can't wait.
All right, yeah, you're playing tonight for the Melbourne Bulldogs. You guys will be traveling up to Merritt Island. Can you give us a glimpse of what's going to happen tonight?
Well, we put in a couple of new plays, and our defense is looking pretty good, so we're ready.
And Austin, you play wide receiver for the Bulldogs, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
Is it frustrating that you guys don't pass more?
It is, but I know we all don't get what we want, and I know I have to do my part on the offense so other players can get touchdowns.
All right. Well, you heard an unselfish player like Austin Beard playing wide receiver for a running team like the Melbourne Bulldogs. But, Austin, let's get into the college teams. Alabama, Texas A&M. This is probably Alabama's last real tough team before they face Georgia, who is likely to beat Auburn this weekend. Before they face Georgia in the SEC championship game. What do you think? Give us a preview of what you think is going to happen between Texas A&M and Alabama.
Well, I think McCarron is just going to pass and run all over Texas A&M defense.
Okay. Oh, McCarron's thrown for 19 touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to really run the football. He had a great drive last week against LSU. So I think he's really solidified himself as a great Alabama quarterback, especially the way he defeated Alabama last week. He's going to take him to another national championship. I think Texas A&M, with their quarterback, Joey Manziel, I think he's done a great job with Texas A&M. Kevin Sumlin's really led that program to a lot better than a lot of people would have given him credit for, because Texas A&M, it comes from the Big 12, comes the SEC. The SEC is known for a lot of defense, and Texas A&M has really put up a fight in the SEC. They've lost tough games to LSU, Florida. They've beaten good SEC opponents. So Texas A&M, really, this is a toss-up game for them. I could see this game being a battle. I think Alabama's going to eventually take it in the end with the running game that they have with Yeldon, the freshman, and McCarron just being efficient. He's not a turnover-prone guy. Texas A&M would need some turnovers to really keep Alabama out of the end zone, and McCarron doesn't turn the ball over. So I think Texas A&M can hang with Alabama for 2 quarters, but I think in the second half, Alabama will be able to put them away and really get ready just to stay healthy. Their next 2 games are against really slack opponents, West Carolina, and obviously the rival game against Auburn. Obviously that's not a slack opponent, but Auburn hasn't been playing well this season. But Alabama, I think their biggest challenge is Texas A&M. What's your thoughts on the game, Austin? Do you think Texas A&M has a shot at beating Alabama?
Actually, I do. I agree. I think first and second quarter, I think they can hang with them. Joey Manziel needs to do his thing. I think he just needs to go out there and give it all he got, and I think if he does good in the second half, I think they will be able to take it home.
All right, that's going to be the key this season because Texas A&M has had trouble in the second half of games. Florida, LSU, they've had trouble just continuing the momentum and playing well. Penalties or late killers and turnovers have really hurt them in the second half. But it's a good game, one of the better games this weekend. I'm really interested to see that matchup. Texas A&M against Alabama. Great game this weekend. Hope you guys get a chance to see it. Like I said, I think Alabama's probably going to win this one. I don't think Alabama's going to get denied another shot at the national championship. I think that team you can definitely solidify as a national championship contender. All right, so we're going to move on to Oregon State versus Stanford, a battle of top 15 teams. Stanford and our Oregon State. This game should be really interesting because Oregon State, if they win, keep their Pac-12 championship hopes alive, because all they have to do is beat an Oregon team, and they're in the Pac-12 championship game. So I'm very interested to see what they do, because Oregon State and Oregon, which will be a couple of weeks away, is really going to be the matchup, the civil war between these two, the rivalry. Oregon State has been able to give Oregon fits late in seasons. So if Oregon State can continue in their winning ways against Stanford, I think they got a shot at Oregon and maybe upsetting Oregon's national championship hopes. Austin?
Yeah, I think this is probably the best game of the week so far. 11 versus 14. I think Oregon State will be in the Pac-12. They just need to beat Stanford and beat Oregon. And I think they'll be in the Pac-12 championship.
All right, I think it's going to be a very difficult thing to do because, like I said, those are the 2 big games that we're going to look at: Alabama, Texas A&M. Alabama, this is the only game where they could hiccup and where things could get interesting in terms of who's going to go to the BCS national championship game. Because right now you got 4 teams. Alabama, I think, is a lock, and you got 3 teams: K-State, Oregon, and Notre Dame, that are trying to get into that second spot. And if Texas A&M could possibly upset Alabama, that could really throw things for a loop. And you don't know who would be in the top. You don't know who would be that other team then, because with those 4 teams, one of those 4 teams is going to be, or 2 of those 4 teams will be in the national championship. But it'll be interesting to see if any kind of screwy wrenches get thrown into the mix to make things really confusing. But let's talk about that. Austin, Alabama, like we talked about earlier, Texas A&M this weekend, West Carolina next weekend, Auburn the following weekend, the Iron Bowl rivalry. That game's always a toss-up just because it's a rivalry. You don't know who's going to win, because some teams that are playing bad could really upset the team that's playing well. K-State on their schedule. They got TCU, probably the best defensive team they're going to face all season. Baylor, probably the best offensive team they're going to face all season. And Texas is a tough team that you can't overlook them. Texas is still a good team, got a lot of good players. You just don't know what they're going to bring to the table. And if Texas could be a team that upsets K-State at the final week of the season for their national championship dreams. Oregon, like we said, at Cal this weekend. Then they got Stanford at home, and then they're at Oregon State to close their season before the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon cannot afford any slip-ups these next 3 weeks. And with their offense, the number one scoring offense in terms of points, averaging 54.3 points a game, I don't see a defense in their schedule that can really stop them. Oregon State has given them fits before, but Oregon's got a ton of speed between DeAnthony Thomas and the kid Kenyon Barner. He had 5 rushing touchdowns last week against USC, who's got a better defense than I think Oregon State or Stanford. So it'd be a very interesting matchup later down the line. But Oregon and K-State got a very tough schedule ahead of them to try and make the national championship. I think Oregon can overcome their schedule and still play in the Pac-12 championship and win it and put themselves over the top and put themselves into the national championship in Miami this year. Then that leaves Notre Dame, ranked number 4. They got Boston College this weekend. Boston College, I talked about it earlier. Boston College, they're bad this year, but this is a rivalry game. Rivalry games, as everybody knows, they're toss-up games. You don't know who's going to play because this one's really about emotions. Who can really keep their emotions in check? And if just a little spark gets things going for the other team, it can really snowball. So Notre Dame's got Boston College this weekend. Boston College has upset Notre Dame before, so there's history there. So that makes me a little worried this weekend, but I think Notre Dame would be fine. They got Wake Forest the following week, and then they got at USC. That game could really make things interesting and probably either give Notre Dame the best shot at the national championship. I don't think they're going to make it, or it will end them. But I think Notre Dame, no matter what this season, regardless of the result against USC, I think Notre Dame's going to be in a BCS bowl game. I think they've had a tremendous season. The opponents that they've faced at the time they faced them and they beat them, even if they lose to USC, which I don't think would be by a big margin, I think still Notre Dame would be in a BCS bowl game, which would be great. I think that does well for the program. I think Notre Dame is really back in to the winning ways that they are usually in under Lou Holtz and the history that they've had before. So, Austin, I got to ask you, looking at the remaining top 4 teams that are undefeated, obviously we looked at Alabama, K-State, Oregon, and Notre Dame. Which team do you think has the best chance to get to the national championship and face Alabama?
I think it's going to be Oregon because right now they have one of the toughest schedules. They're versing, like you said, Stanford and Oregon State, which is a big rivalry, and Oregon State's ranked number 11. So I can't wait to see that game. All
right. But here's the interesting thing. Let me ask you this. What kind of national championship game do you want to see? Who would be the team that you had to pick from those 4 teams? Or I should say from the other 3 teams. Alabama's the lock in the national championship. But from the other 3 teams, who would you want to see face Alabama?
That's a tough question. I'd like to see Notre Dame because they've been bouncing back for the last couple of years. They haven't been too good, and they really sparked up this season. But I think I'd like to see Oregon.
Me too. I'd like to see Oregon and Alabama. Oregon's got so much speed on offense, so much talent there. That would be a very interesting matchup. Their offense versus defense. No matter what, as a football fan, you love to see that strength versus strength. Got the unbreakable defense and then just this unstoppable offense. And Oregon has that with so much speed and so many playmakers. So I guess the thing for me is I think Oregon and Alabama would provide the best national championship game. So many people were disappointed last year because it was LSU and Alabama. We already seen that one. There wasn't a lot of offense. I think in this game you would see a lot of offense from Oregon or a lot of big plays, maybe not a ton of points scored, but I just think you'd see enough.
Yeah, I think just Oregon with the speed, I think they'd run all over Alabama's defense, but Alabama's defense is looking good. They're looking good right now.
Yeah, and like you said, that obviously last week was a tough week. Metzenberger was playing really well on top of his game. His receivers were just making great catches. But like I said, Kenyon Barner, DeAnthony Thomas, those guys are just really good, and I think Alabama would really have a tough time stopping them because even though you face a lot of speed in the SEC, I don't know if Alabama has ever seen the kind of speed that DeAnthony Thomas and Barner bring to the table. So those games are on tap this week. I want to thank Austin for his time. Thanks for the input, buddy. We're going to get ready to turn our attention to some of the celebrity gossip, a lot of athletes going on. What are they doing off the field? Obviously, baseball. What are the guys doing? Unfortunately, Kim's going to tell me some bad news for Matt Kemp, but possibly good news for the New Yorker, the all-time Yankee, Derek Jeter. Kim, what do you got for me?
All right, thanks, Knock. And here's what we have for celebrity couples. Jessica Simpson and Eric Johnson. Less than 2 weeks after Nick Lachey got engaged, Jessica Simpson and her ex-NFL player of 5 months announced their plans to marry. Rihanna and Matt Kemp. Guess we won't see Rihanna take the field to sing the national anthem before Matt plays. After all, the couple split up allegedly due to busy schedule. Carrie Underwood and Mike Fisher. Following a year of dating on the DL, the March 2010 Cosmo girl showed up to root for Mike on the ice, wearing a big piece of her own ice on her left finger. Brooklyn Decker and Andy Roddick. He's a tennis pro, but she's the one who snagged the cover of the Sports Illustrated. Minka Kelly and Derek Jeter. The Yankee has a handful of World Series rings, but our bet is that the next ring he gets will be for his actress. And that's all we have today.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate it. Like you said, you can always hear Kim, and she'll be on the Friday podcast telling us celebrity gossip and actually more of the sports celebrity gossip, what's going on. Like you said, obviously, Derek Jeter, that possibly could happen. Best of luck to him on if he actually does make the jump and proposes. So, back to sports. Guys, I've got what you've wanted. I've been told that they want fantasy football advice. I have it for you guys. Really, really excited to bring this to you. Who you should start, who you should sit this week. I got a lot of interesting matchups this week who I think you guys should start. I'm gonna throw a surprise in there. If you haven't started already and you need a defense, I say for this week, just in matchup terms, go with the Dallas defense against Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles have not played well. They only scored 13 points against the Saints defense, which is the worst defense, I think, in the league behind, obviously, the Kansas Cities and stuff like that. But New Orleans' defense is bad, and they only scored 13 points. So they're going to turn the ball over. Dallas's defense has played well. They get turnovers. I would look for them to get a possible touchdown, a couple fumble recoveries, and even a couple sacks. DeMarcus Ware, I think, could probably get 3 sacks. So if you need a defense this week, and if Dallas is still on the table, take Dallas's defense, start them. I think you're going to be happy with the return you get. I think Philadelphia Eagles offense, Michael Vick is going to turn the ball over. We're going to see fumbles, we're going to see interceptions, and we're going to see sacks. So that's a sleeper. On the defensive side, if you need a defense, go for Dallas. Another player that you might want to consider getting, Michael LaShore, the Detroit running back. He had 3 rushing touchdowns last week. Detroit's trying to get the running game going, and I would look for that again this week. I think you're going to get a heavy dose of LaShore. So if you need a running back or you need a flex player, try and grab LaShore if you got somebody on the bye or somebody hurt. Another guy, Michael Floyd, the wide receiver for San Diego, against the Bucs' awful pass defense. I think Michael Floyd's going to have a heck of a day. Phillip Rivers is going to look for him early and often, and I think they're going to connect for at least 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards receiving. So if you can, pick up Floyd if he's still available. If you need a tight end, I needed a tight end last week. I had Dwayne Allen, the rookie for the Colts. He did a phenomenal job for me last week. Brandon Meyer is somebody you should look for. Brandon Meyer had a touchdown last week and a lot of yards. He got probably about 8 or 9 fantasy points, and that's what you really want to get out of your tight end position, or even if you need him for your flex. Brandon Meyer would be a guy. They're facing the Baltimore defense. They've given up a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns, but Carson Palmer, he has familiarity with the Ravens. I think the Brandon Meyer could be a guy that would be an option for you that would take advantage of the Baltimore's weak pass defense with Ladarius Webb and Ray Lewis out of the mix. Brandon Meyer can find holes in the secondary. Did a great job against the worst pass defense in Tampa Bay last week, but I think he would be another good pickup for you. Probably get you 8 or 9 points this week, I think. Another Raider that you should try and pick up, Marcel Reese, the running back, had a lot of big plays last week, a lot of yards, a touchdown. Another guy that I think if you want to, the Ravens defense rushing-wise has given up a lot of yards. Marcel Reese is going to be the back because McFadden and Goodson are out this week with ankle injuries. If you still need a running back, go with Reese. I think he's going to get you a lot of points this week, or at least just to be a good fill-in for your number 2 or flex position in terms of your running backs. Another guy, Jamal Charles, that guy, he's going to have a big game this week. I like what he's going to be able to do. So if you can, start him. If you had him on the bench, start him this week, facing one of the weaker running defenses in the NFL. So guys to sit, I would sit Michael Vick, a guy that's not been playing very well. He faces the Dallas defense. Like I said, if you can get the Dallas defense against Michael Vick, turning the ball over a lot this week. Other options, if you can still get him, Andy Dalton's on there. He's good for 20 points, 18 to 20 points a game. So if you just need to fill in, hopefully Eli Manning can break out of his slump. He just hasn't played well. I've had him on my team. I've just had him sitting on the bench. Josh Freeman's done phenomenal. I'm going to keep him starting on my team. But if you can, pick up Dalton, pick up Flacco. Bradford might be an option after he plays San Francisco. So, like I said, those would be guys. Ryan Tannehill. Actually, if Ryan Tannehill's still available, pick him up, start him this week. I think you're going to see good dividends come from him. He's been playing really well this season. Doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and he does get a couple touchdowns. Obviously, he doesn't have the greatest receiving core, but if you can get Ryan Tannehill, I think that would really help for at least for whatever week that your quarterback's on the bye. So some other guys to start and sit this week. Ben Roethlisberger, I would start him. Eli Manning, he's playing the Bengals defense. Eli Manning, like I said, I think he'll break out of his slump. Flacco against the Raiders, awful secondary. He'll take advantage of it with Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith, another receiver that you should start this week. Ryan Fitzpatrick might be the sleeper against the New England's defense. Even though New England just acquired Aqib Talib, he's still got one more game to serve his suspension, so they're still going to have a weak pass defense. So I think Joe Flacco against the Raiders. I'm sorry, that was totally off with the Patriots. Or Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Patriots will have a big game with Aqib Talib out still, the weak secondary for the Baltimore or for the New England Patriots. And then quarterbacks to sit this week, Jay Cutler against the Houston Texans. Big matchup. This game, you're really not sure what team's going to have a big field because this game is going to be about defense. Can J.J. Watt take advantage of the weak Chicago Bears offensive line and get to Jay Cutler? That'll be the interesting matchup. Matt Schaub, again, will he get sacked by that Bears defensive line? Just two really good defenses going at it. I don't know if you really want to start anybody from that week. If you got better options and better matchups, I'd start those guys. Arian Foster, I would start too. But if you got better options at quarterback, I would go with those guys. Running backs, start Stephen Ridley against the weak Buffalo Bills defense. Michael Turner against the weak New Orleans Saints defense. Reggie Bush, Willis McGahee. Running backs to sit this week, Jarvis Green-Ellis, Felix Jones, and Sean Green. I wouldn't start those guys. Receivers, like I said this week, if you can get them, would be Malcolm Floyd, talked about it earlier, Brandon Lloyd, Stevie Johnson against the Patriots, and Mike Wallace. Stevie Johnson's had big games against the Patriots, so I would definitely start him if you got him or if you can pick him up. Demarius Moore against the Ravens, I wouldn't start him. Macklin against the Cowboys, like I said, I really wouldn't start any of the skill players from the Philadelphia Eagles except for LaShawn McCoy for the Eagles. So like I said, that's pretty much it for my startums and situms this week. I think those are going to be the interesting those are the guys you should start and sit. If you need more information, I know you guys can definitely find it. Like I said, ask me on Facebook, ask me on Twitter. Definitely hit me up for questions. If you need any fantasy help, let me know. Like I said, I got a lot of resources, and I'm definitely willing to help out. Right now I'm doing well in one league and not so hot in the other, but like I said, guys, I got a lot of fantasy knowledge up here that I'm sure I'd love to dish out for you. And who to pick, who to decide, who to start this week. Like I said, the biggest guy I'd pick up this week is the Dallas defense. If you're weak in the defense, pick Dallas. I think they can give you big point totals and put you over the top in the win column. So we're going to move on to some of the games this week. San Diego, Tampa Bay, a battle of 4-4 teams. Teams going in two different directions, I think. I think Tampa Bay is going to win this game. Doug Martin, Josh Freeman, that offense is just looking explosive. Vincent Jackson has been playing really well. I think he takes advantage of a weak Chargers defense. They're not going to be playing the Kansas City Chiefs again. They're going to play a more explosive team, and San Diego's had problems doing that. They had problems against the Cleveland Browns. So San Diego's defense, if you got them, I would bench them. So Tampa Bay's offense, if you got Freeman, you got Jackson, you got Williams, you got Doug Martin, I'd start him. And if you got Dallas Clark, he wouldn't be a bad tight end or flex position. I think Dallas Clark is going to get a touchdown this weekend as well in terms of fantasy points. But I like Tampa Bay to win this game. Tampa Bay wins this game 28-14. Maybe San Diego gets a field goal 28-17. But either way, Tampa Bay wins this game and they move to 5-4. And New Orleans at Atlanta, one of the biggest matchups this week. New Orleans has been on fire. They've been, after the 0-4 start, they've won 3 out of their last 4. So I think New Orleans is going to have a good game against Atlanta. Drew Brees is going to throw that rivalry game. It's always a big game, and Drew Brees is taking advantage of the Falcons of late. I still think Matt Ryan and the Falcons will still get on top of the Saints. The Saints have been on a roll. They're a lot better than their 0-4 team or their first 4 games, but I still think New Orleans Saints are in for the long haul for a bad season, losing season. They just don't have the defense. Their defense has way too many gaping holes, and Michael Turner and company with Matt Ryan and Roddy White and Julio Jones are just going to take advantage of it. So I got Atlanta winning 31-21 over the New Orleans Saints. Up next, Dallas and Philly. Like I said, start Dallas's defense this week if you got them, or pick them up. Philly's not going to play well. I don't like their chances this week, so it'll be an interesting matchup. I think Philly's going to lose to Dallas. Dallas gets back on track, and Dallas continues their playoff hopes. The other game, Houston and Chicago. I think Houston's going to win that game. I think Chicago's played a lot of inferior opponents. The Tennessee Titans last week showed it. I don't think they played a really tough team. I think Houston wins this week and goes to 8-1, and Chicago gets exposed. So those are my wrap-ups for this week. Like I said, guys, listen to the podcast. I enjoy your listening. You got any questions, let me know. Post them on my Facebook wall or post them on my Twitter. I love to answer questions about fantasy football or just who to pick this week if you're in pick'em leagues. Like I said, great weekend for sports, great college football action, great Sunday action. I hope you guys get to watch it. I know I'll be working, so I'll be able to catch a few games. But great matchups this week. Look forward to talking to you guys next week about them and getting ready for the football playoffs in high school football. If you can tonight, tune in to 89.3 in North Brevard, 90.3 in South Brevard for all the fun and action that Steve Wilson, Orville Susong, and myself bring to the broadcast. Tonight, we got Rockledge at Cocoa for the annual barbecue bowl. Should be a lot of fun. This is the Knock On Sports. I'm knocking out.